We see bats as silent hunters of the night, using sound to navigate a world of darkness. But what many people have overlooked is that they are constantly talking. And now, thanks to a powerful new AI, we know exactly what they're saying. Scientists have decoded their language, revealing a hidden world of social squabbles and personal disputes. The AI can tell if a bat is arguing about a piece of fruit or an unwelcome neighbor. This breakthrough is completely changing our understanding of animal intelligence and communication. The secret social lives of bats. For as long as we have told stories, we have dreamed of talking to animals. The idea of understanding the thoughts of another species, of breaking the barrier between our world and theirs, is a fantasy that has captivated us for millennia, but it has always remained just that, a fantasy. You see, we believed that animal sounds were simple, a basic set of signals for danger, food, or mate. We saw them as instinct-driven alarms, not conversations. But what if we were completely wrong? What if, in the chaotic darkness of a crowded cave, an incredibly complex social drama was unfolding every single night, and we just weren't smart enough to understand it? That is the question a team of scientists led by Professor Yossi Yovel at Tel Aviv University set out to answer. Their subject was the Egyptian fruit bat, a highly social creature that lives in enormous, bustling colonies. They chose a massive pitch-black cave in Israel, a natural cathedral teeming with over 22,000 of these animals. To the human ear, the inside of this cave is pure chaos, a relentless high-pitched cacophony of screeches, squeaks, and chirps. For decades, biologists assumed this was just the sonic fallout of thousands of animals crammed into one space. The thing is, Yovel and his team suspected there was a pattern in the noise, a language hidden in the chaos. To find it, they launched one of the most ambitious eavesdropping operations in the history of biology. For 75 straight days, they wired the cave for sound and video. They placed microphones and high-resolution cameras near a small group of bats, recording their every interaction, their every squeak, 24 hours a day. The result was a massive database of sound and behavior, over 15,000 distinct vocalizations, each one linked to a specific observable action. They had captured the raw data of bat society, but not all things are what they seem, and simply having the recordings wasn't enough. They needed a way to decode it. This is where the real breakthrough happened. They turned to the power of artificial intelligence. The team adapted a voice recognition algorithm, the same kind of technology that allows our phones to understand our commands, and they trained it on the bat calls. They fed the 15,000 sounds into the machine learning program. The AI's job was to listen, analyze, and find patterns that the human ear could never detect. It looked at the frequency, the tone, the duration, and dozens of other subtle acoustic properties of each and every call. Then, they gave the AI context. They told it what was happening when each call was made, based on their video recordings. This bat was trying to take food from another. This one was complaining about another bat getting too close to its sleeping spot. This one was making an unwanted advance on a female. The results were nothing short of revolutionary. The AI learned the language of bat arguments. With an astonishing 71% accuracy, the AI could correctly identify the specific context of the argument. Think about that for a moment. Just by listening to a screech, the computer could tell if the bats were fighting over food, a sleeping position, or another type of dispute. It was the first time this level of detail had ever been decoded in any mammal's social calls. But it got even more specific. The AI wasn't just understanding the topic of the fight, it was identifying the participants. With over 60% accuracy, it could tell which specific bat was making the complaint. It learned to recognize the unique vocal signatures of individual bats in the colony, like recognizing a person's voice in a crowded room. This discovery alone was incredible. It proved that bats have individual vocal identities, but the AI went one step further. It could often identify not just the screamer, but also the bat the screech was directed at. Truth be told, this wasn't just random noise. These were targeted, specific complaints from one individual to another. The AI had uncovered evidence of a complex, socially aware communication system. It was as if they were saying, "Hey you, get away from my dinner." The implications were staggering. For the first time, we had scientific proof that the sounds these animals were making were not just generic calls, but highly nuanced, information-rich messages. They contained data about the sender, the receiver, and the specific reason for the interaction. The researchers had effectively created a rudimentary bat-to-English translator for arguments. What many had dismissed as meaningless noise was, in fact, the sound of a complex society in action. The AI had cracked the first layer of the code, but it hinted at even deeper levels of complexity. Masters of the night. The revelation that bats have specific personal arguments was a massive shock to the scientific community. But to put it mildly, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the incredible cognitive abilities of these creatures. The thing nobody tells you is that a bat's entire world is built on a foundation of sound in a way that is almost impossible for us, as visual creatures, to comprehend. Their ability to communicate is just one part of a much larger, more sophisticated sensory toolkit that makes them masters of the night. The most famous of these abilities is, of course, echolocation. A bat can fly through a pitch-black forest at high speed, avoiding every single branch, and hunt down a tiny moth in midair, all by using sound. They emit a series of ultrasonic clicks, far too high-pitched for humans to hear, and then they listen to the echoes that bounce back. Their brain then takes this information and builds a rich, three-dimensional map of their surroundings. It's not just a simple sonar ping, it's a highly detailed acoustic image. They can determine the size, shape, texture, and distance of an object from the subtle changes in the returning echo. Some species of bats can even use echolocation to detect the tiny ripples on the surface of a pond made by a fish or the faint flutter of a moth's wings. Many people are crazy about this idea, but what they don't realize is that this is, in a very real sense, a form of language. It's a conversation with the environment itself. The bat sends out a question, a click, and the environment answers with an echo. The bat's brain then interprets this answer to create a complete picture of reality. This process is so incredibly fast and complex that it requires an enormous amount of brain power. In fact, the auditory cortex in a bat's brain, the part that processes sound, is vastly larger and more complex than in almost any other mammal, including humans. They don't just hear the world, they see it with sound. This mastery of sound extends into their social lives in ways we are just beginning to understand. We now know that baby bats learn to speak in a way that is strikingly similar to how human infants learn language. Pups are not born knowing the full vocal repertoire of their species. Instead, they babble. For months, young bats will practice making different sounds, experimenting with pitch and tone, imitating the adult calls they hear around them. This vocal learning is an incredibly rare trait in the animal kingdom, found only in a handful of species like songbirds, whales, and, of course, humans. It suggests that bat communication is not entirely hardwired by instinct. It is a learned skill, passed down from one generation to the next. Their social intelligence goes far beyond just communication. Vampire bats, for example, have developed a complex system of cooperation that is almost unheard of in the animal world. These bats need to feed on blood every 1 to 2 nights, or they will starve. A bat that fails to find a meal can return to the roost and will be fed by its roost mates. A bat that has successfully fed will regurgitate a portion of its blood meal to share with a hungry friend. This isn't random charity. You see, these relationships are built on a system of reciprocity. A bat is far more likely to share food with another bat that has previously shared food with it. They remember who their friends are, and they keep track of who owes them a favor. This requires sophisticated long-term memory and the ability to recognize and trust specific individuals within a large group. This complex social web is the reason their communication needed to be so specific. When you have friends, rivals, and a complex social hierarchy, you need a way to have nuanced interactions. You need to be able to do more than just shout danger. You need to be able to say, "That's my spot," or "You shared food with me yesterday, so I will share with you today." The AI breakthrough didn't just show us that bats argue. It provided the first real evidence that their vocalizations were sophisticated enough to manage their incredibly complex social lives. The question was no longer whether animals had language, but what other secrets were hidden in their calls. The Dr. Dolittle machine. The successful decoding of bat arguments using AI wasn't just a win for bat biology, It was a proof of concept for a whole new field of science. It was the moment the dream of a universal translator for animals moved from the pages of science fiction into the realm of possibility. If an AI could learn the nuances of bat squabbles, what other animal conversations could we start to listen in on? The thing is, this technology has opened the door to a new era of bioacoustics, the study of animal sounds, and scientists around the world are now pointing their microphones and their algorithms at all corners of the animal kingdom. One of the most ambitious of these projects is Project CETI, which stands for the Cetacean Translation Initiative. This massive, multidisciplinary effort is focused on one of the most mysterious and complex sounds in nature, the song of the sperm whale. Sperm whales are not just big animals. They have the largest brains of any creature on Earth, nearly 6 times the size of a human brain. And for decades, we have known that they communicate using a series of powerful rhythmic clicks called codas. These codas are not simple noises. They are complex patterns, almost like a form of Morse code, that can travel for hundreds of miles through the deep ocean. Whale families or clans have their own unique dialects of codas, suggesting that these are learned, cultural traditions passed down through generations. But what are they saying? Are they just identifying their clan, or are they having detailed conversations about migration routes, food sources, or social events? That is what Project CETI aims to find out. Using an army of underwater microphones, robotic fish, and advanced AI, they are building a massive database of whale clicks, just like the bat researchers did. Their goal is nothing short of cracking the code of whale communication. They hope to one day not just understand what the whales are saying, but to potentially talk back to them, to engage in the first ever interspecies conversation with another intelligent mind. But you don't need a massive brain to have a complex conversation. Even some of the smallest creatures are revealing hidden layers of communication. Scientists studying prairie dogs, for example, have discovered that their high-pitched alarm calls are incredibly descriptive. They don't just have a single call for danger. They have different calls for different predators, like a hawk, a coyote, or a badger. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. They can incorporate descriptive details into the call. They can modify the call to describe the color of a person's shirt or whether that person is carrying a weapon. They can essentially say, "Warning, tall human in a blue shirt approaching." This level of descriptive power in a vocalization is something we once thought was unique to human language. The technology is now being applied everywhere. AI is being used to analyze the songs of birds, revealing that their complex melodies are not just for attracting mates, but can also contain specific information about their territory and their neighbors. It is being used to listen to the grunts and squeals of pigs, with one study showing that an AI can now accurately determine a pig's emotional state, whether it is happy, scared, or stressed, just from the sound it makes. We are, in essence, building an animal internet, a global network of listening devices and intelligent algorithms that are constantly decoding the chatter of the natural world. But this raises a profound and slightly unsettling question. For our entire history, we have operated under the assumption that we are the only truly intelligent, linguistic beings on this planet. We have treated the rest of the animal kingdom as unthinking, unfeeling objects. But what happens when our own technology proves us wrong? What are our ethical obligations if we discover that the animals we farm for food are having detailed conversations about their own fear and suffering? What if we learn that the whales we are driving to extinction are passing down stories of our destruction from one generation to the next? We might be on the verge of understanding the true voice of our planet, but we may not like what it has to say. Echoes of a dying world. The AI's translation of bat arguments was a landmark achievement, but what it decoded were the most basic functional parts of their language, squabbles over resources. It's the equivalent of listening to humans argue in a cafeteria line. But what about the rest of their conversation? What are they saying in the quiet moments between the fights? What many people are now starting to wonder is, what if their language contains concepts and ideas that are completely alien to us? What if they are talking about things we can't even begin to imagine? This is where we move from established science into a realm of fascinating and slightly eerie speculation. Consider the bat's primary sense, echolocation. They perceive the world as a landscape of acoustic textures and shapes. The thing is, they might have words and concepts to describe this world that have no equivalent in any human language. A human might describe a tree as having rough bark and green leaves. A bat's description might be based on its acoustic density or the echo signature of its foliage. They could be having conversations about the very fabric of reality that are based on a completely different sensory channel. What would it even mean to translate a word that describes the sound of a particular kind of silence or the echo texture of a spider's web? This opens up a truly wild possibility. Could their vocalizations contain information that is passed down through generations, a form of oral history? We know that whale clans pass down their unique dialects. It's not a huge leap to imagine that bats, who also learn their vocalizations, might pass down other types of information. Could they have specific calls that warn younger generations about a particular cave that is prone to collapse, or a specific type of predator that only appears every few years? Could they be passing down acoustic maps of their territory, teaching their young the sound of the safest flight paths and the most productive hunting grounds? It is possible that within their chatter are echoes of events that happened long ago, a library of acoustic knowledge that we have been deaf to for our entire existence. This leads to a more troubling thought. If they can communicate with such specificity, are they talking about us? We know from other studies that many animals, like crows, can recognize individual human faces and will teach their young which humans are dangerous. Could bats be doing the same? When we enter their caves with our bright lights and our loud equipment, are they just scattering in fear, or are they communicating? Are they saying, "The tall, loud creatures are back"? Are they warning each other about specific researchers? The idea that we are not just anonymous observers, but known, named, and discussed individuals in their world is a humbling and unsettling one. For anyone looking at the big picture, the most profound and shocking message might be one that is not directed at each other, but at the world itself. Animals are incredibly sensitive to changes in their environment. Could their communication be changing as a result of the pressures we are putting on the planet? Are bats in agricultural areas developing new calls to warn each other about pesticides? Are whales creating new codas to try and communicate over the deafening noise of our cargo ships? We might be listening in on a global conversation about an unfolding catastrophe. The AI is giving us the tool to translate their language, and their main topic of conversation might just be the world that we are destroying. The thing is, we've always looked for intelligent life in the stars. We've built massive radio telescopes and pointed them at distant galaxies, hoping to hear a signal. But what if the intelligent life we've been searching for has been here all along, chattering, singing, and screeching right under our noses? We were just waiting for a machine smart enough to tell us how to listen. A new conversation. So what does this all mean? Did scientists invent a bat signal decoder and find out that these creatures are plotting world domination? To put it mildly, no. The reality is both less sensational and infinitely more profound. The AI didn't translate their screeches into elaborate sentences or philosophical debates. It did something more fundamental. It proved that their calls are packed with specific, predictable information. It showed us that within that chaotic noise is a structured system for communicating about the things that matter in their social world. They aren't just making noise, they are having conversations. The thing nobody tells you is that this changes everything. For centuries, a core tenet of our worldview has been the idea of human exceptionalism, the belief that complex language and the rich inner life it allows is uniquely ours. We saw the rest of the world as fundamentally other. But the AI has drawn a crack in that wall. It suggests that the line between us and them is much blurrier than we ever thought. The kind of social intelligence required to have a specific argument with a specific neighbor over a specific piece of fruit is not the mark of a simple, instinct-driven automaton. It is the mark of a conscious, socially aware being. For the average person, this can seem like it came out of nowhere. One day, animal sounds are just noise, and the next we're decoding their arguments. Is all this real? Are we missing a key detail? The truth is, this isn't an overnight discovery, but the culmination of decades of research. And it doesn't mean we'll be having chats with bats anytime soon. The AI is a pattern recognition machine. It has learned to correlate certain acoustic patterns with certain behaviors and outcomes. It has unlocked the what, but it hasn't unlocked the why. We still don't know what it feels like to be a bat or how they truly perceive the world through sound. But we have started a new conversation, not with the bats themselves, but with the very idea of what it means to be an intelligent being on this planet. We are standing at the beginning of a revolution in understanding, a time when our own technology is forcing us to look at the other minds that share our world with a new sense of respect and perhaps a little bit of awe. The language of the bats was not what we thought because we were not thinking big enough. We were listening for a simpler version of ourselves when we should have been listening for something entirely new. We've cracked the code of bad arguments, but what other conversations are happening all around us? Could this technology be the key to understanding the entire planet? Let us know what you think. And for more incredible scientific breakthroughs, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.